On a freezing, pouring night in Chicago, Marcus, a homeless man shivering from hunger and cold under a bridge, suddenly spotted a well-dressed man lying unconscious in the street. Everyone around simply walked past indifferent, not a single person stopping to help. Immediately, Marcus rushed over and lifted him up. He carried the heavy man on his back, struggling through the rain for over an hour to reach the hospital. But when he arrived, the police handcuffed Marcus, suspecting him of robbery. And that moment of injustice became the beginning of a story of confrontation, rescue, and a life-changing bond between two strangers. Before we go back, let us know where you're watching from, and subscribe, because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. Marcus Reed learned a long time ago that invisibility wasn't a superpower, it was a punishment. Chicago's Jackson Station on a February morning looked like God had given up halfway through painting it. Gray sky, gray concrete, gray faces rushing past. The kind of cold that didn't just chill your bones, it reminded you that you were alone. Marcus sat on his usual piece of cardboard near the station entrance, back against the graffiti-stained wall. 52 years old, but the streets had a way of adding decades to a man. His hands, calloused and scarred from years working on subway maintenance, now spent their days holding a paper cup with 17 cents in it. "Spare change," he said to a woman in a business suit. She didn't even look down. Her eyes stayed locked on her phone as she stepped around him like he was a puddle. Marcus didn't blame her. He'd become part of the scenery, just another broken thing in a city full of them. A group of college kids walked by, laughing about something on their phones. One of them, a kid with a North Face jacket that probably cost more than Marcus made in 3 months, tossed a crumpled dollar toward the cup. It missed, landed in a puddle. "Thanks," Marcus said anyway, reaching for the wet bill. The kid didn't hear him. Already gone. Marcus smoothed out the dollar against his torn jeans, then tucked it into his jacket pocket. Every dollar mattered, every single one. He'd been out here for 4 years now. 4 years since the landlord changed the locks on his South Side apartment. 4 years since he'd slept in a real bed. But if he closed his eyes, he could still remember what a home felt like. Could still smell Angela's cooking on Sunday mornings. Could still hear Daniel's laugh echoing down the hallway. God, that laugh. Marcus pulled out the photograph from his inside pocket, creased, faded, protected in a Ziploc bag that had seen better days. Daniel, at 9 years old, grinning with that gap between his front teeth, wearing his favorite Bulls jersey, the one Marcus had saved up 2 paychecks to buy. "Hey, Daniel," Marcus whispered like he did every morning. "Ba's still here." The memory hit him before he could stop it. 11 years ago. Cook County Hospital. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead like angry wasps. Marcus sat in a plastic chair that made his back ache, watching doctors and nurses move past Daniel's room like shadows. His son lay in that bed, small and fragile, hooked up to machines that beeped with every heartbeat. Beep, beep, beep. Each one a reminder that Daniel was still alive. Each silence between them a threat. "Mr. Reed," Marcus stood up fast, nearly knocking over the coffee he'd been nursing for 3 hours. The doctor, a tired-looking man with gray at his temples, held a clipboard like a shield. "Is he okay? Can you do the surgery now?" The doctor's face said everything before his mouth did. "We can keep him stable for a few more days, but without the deposit for the procedure, we can't schedule the operating room. Insurance will only cover a portion, and the rest needs to be guaranteed up front." Marcus felt the floor tilt under him. "How much?" $35,000. The number hung in the air like smoke. $35,000. Marcus made $22 an hour fixing trains. He'd already sold his car, already borrowed against his pension, already begged his union rep, who'd looked at him with pity and said there was nothing more they could do. "Please," Marcus heard himself say, and he hated the sound of his own voice, hated how small it was. "Please, he's 11 years old. He didn't do anything to deserve this." The doctor looked down at his clipboard. "I'm sorry. I truly am. But hospital policy is hospital policy." Marcus remembered grabbing the man's arm. Not hard, just desperate. "What if it was your son?" The doctor pulled away, professional mask sliding back into place. "I'll give you another day to figure something out." Another day. Like time was a gift they were handing him. Like time was something Daniel had left. Marcus sat outside the hospital's financial office for 6 hours that day. Sat there until security asked him to leave. Then he went home and found Angela in the kitchen, staring at a stack of medical bills that covered the entire table. She didn't look up when he walked in. "How much do we need?" "35. Angela laughed. It was the saddest sound Marcus had ever heard. $35,000. We have 400 in checking and a car we already sold. "I'll figure it out," Marcus said. "I'll get a second job. I'll work overnight. I'll do whatever it takes." Angela finally looked at him, and her eyes were red from crying. "Marcus, baby, we don't have time for whatever it takes. Daniel needs surgery this week, or his heart's going to give out." She was right. They both knew it. Marcus tried everything. Called every lending company that would listen, walked into payday loan offices that looked at his credit score and laughed, stood outside churches and community centers asking for help getting sympathetic looks and $5 bills that felt like insults. Daniel's surgery got postponed 3 times. 3 times Marcus showed up at the hospital with money that wasn't enough. 3 times he watched his son's face get a little paler, a little weaker. On the 4th night, Marcus fell asleep in that plastic chair in the hospital hallway. He didn't mean to. He'd been awake for 47 hours straight, working double shifts, and then sitting with Daniel holding his small hand and telling him stories to keep him from being scared. "Ba's here," Marcus had whispered. "Ba's always here." But he wasn't. When Marcus woke up, a nurse was shaking his shoulder. The look on her face told him everything. "I'm so sorry," she said. "We did everything we could." Marcus walked into Daniel's room and saw his son lying still. No more beeping, no more breathing, just silence. The kind of silence that fills up your chest and suffocates you from the inside. He picked up Daniel's Bulls jersey from the chair beside the bed. It still smelled like his son. Still had a grape juice stain on the collar from last week when they'd been watching the game together when Daniel was laughing and pretending to shoot hoops from his hospital bed. Marcus pressed the jersey to his face and cried until he couldn't breathe. Present day, Jackson Station. "You okay, Marcus?" He looked up. Tommy, another homeless man who usually slept near the south entrance, was standing there with a concerned look on his weathered face. Marcus realized he'd been crying. He wiped his eyes quickly, tucked the photograph back into his pocket. Yeah, I'm good." "You sure you look like you seen a ghost?" "Just remembering something," Marcus said. Tommy nodded, slowly understanding in a way only someone who'd lost everything could understand. "Those memories will kill you faster than the cold brother. Trust me." "Maybe," Marcus said. "But they're all I got left." Tommy handed him half a sandwich wrapped in plastic. Tuna fish, probably from a gas station. "Here, found 2 of these in the dumpster behind the subway. Still good." Marcus took it even though he wasn't hungry. "Thanks, Tommy." After Tommy left, Marcus sat there eating the sandwich and watching people rush past. Every single one of them had somewhere to go, somewhere warm, somewhere that mattered. A young mother walked by with her son, maybe 7 years old, bundled up in a puffy winter coat. The kid was complaining about the cold, and his mom was telling him they'd get hot chocolate after his doctor's appointment. Marcus watched them disappear into the station, and something twisted inside his chest. Daniel never got to complain about the cold anymore. Never got to drink hot chocolate or grow up or do anything because Marcus couldn't save him. Because in America, your kid's life had a price tag, and if you couldn't pay it, well, tough luck. Marcus pulled out the photograph one more time, stared at his son smile. "If I become cruel," he whispered, "then you died for nothing, Daniel. You hear me for nothing." A businessman walked past, talking loudly on his phone about stock options and quarterly reports. Dropped his empty Starbucks cup right next to Marcus without even glancing down. Marcus picked it up, tossed it in the nearby trash can. Because even when the world treated you like garbage, you didn't have to act like it. That's what Angela used to say back when she could still say anything without crying. She'd left 2 years after Daniel died, packed a bag one morning, and said she was going to Milwaukee to take care of an elderly woman who needed a live-in nurse. "I can't stay here, Marcus," she'd said, tears running down her face. "Every time I look at you, I see him, and if I stay, this pain is going to kill me." Marcus hadn't argued, hadn't begged, just watched her leave because he understood. Sometimes love isn't enough to fight the weight of grief. They never divorced, never officially ended anything, just drifted apart like 2 pieces of wreckage after a shipwreck. Now Marcus was alone, completely, utterly alone. "Spare change," he said to another passing stranger. No response. He said it again to someone else. Nothing. Invisible. But that night, when Marcus was sharing his spot under the bridge with 3 other homeless people, he noticed an old woman shivering in the corner. She was new, probably just hit the streets, still had that look of shock in her eyes, like she couldn't believe this was real. Marcus walked over and handed her his extra blanket, the one he'd found last week. "Here," he said. "It's going to get colder tonight." She looked up at him, surprised that anyone cared. "Thank you," she whispered. Marcus nodded and walked back to his spot. Tommy gave him a look. "That was your good blanket, man. She needs it more." "You're too soft, Marcus. World's going to eat you alive." Marcus lay down on his cardboard, pulled his thin jacket tighter. "Maybe," he said quietly, "but I'd rather freeze than forget how to be human." Above him, cars rumbled across the bridge. People going home. People with heat and beds and families waiting. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to sleep, one hand resting on the photograph in his pocket. Tomorrow would be another day of being invisible, but at least he'd still be himself. William Harrington sat in the back of his Mercedes, staring at his phone like it was a bomb about to explode. 23 missed calls, 14 texts, all from his legal team, his PR director, and one from Jonathan Price that just said, "We need to talk. Now. We need to talk." That's what people said right before they stabbed you in the back. The car crawled through downtown Chicago traffic rain, hammering against the windows. William's driver, Santos, kept glancing at him in the rearview mirror, but knew better than to ask questions. After 12 years of driving William around, Santos had learned that silence was the most valuable thing he could offer. William scrolled through his emails, each one worse than the last. The lawsuit was everywhere now. Tech blogs, financial news, even mainstream media had picked it up. Harrington Systems faces major data breach lawsuit. CEO accused of negligence in patient data leak. His phone buzzed again. This time it was his lawyer. William answered. "Tell me something good, Robert." "I can't." Robert Chen's voice was tight professional. "The board's meeting tomorrow morning. They're going to ask for your resignation." William felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Based on what I signed the repair order, I did everything right. Doesn't matter. Jonathan has emails showing you knew about the vulnerability 3 months before the breach. He's painting you as someone who chose profit over security. That's a lie. The delays came from his department, not mine." "I know," Robert said, "but he's got the paper trail positioned perfectly. Makes it look like you ignored his warnings. The board's already leaning toward believing him." William closed his eyes. 20 years. 20 years building Harrington Systems from a 3-person startup in his garage to a company worth $800 million. And now Jonathan Price, the man William had trusted as his right hand for 2 decades, was burning it all down to save himself. "Can we fight this?" William asked. "We can try. But honestly, William, the optics are terrible. You might want to consider stepping down quietly, negotiating a good severance package, and moving on." Moving on. Like 20 years of his life was just something you could walk away from. "I'll think about it," William said and hung up. The car stopped at a red light. Outside, Chicago gleamed in the rain, all those glass towers reflecting each other like mirrors. William had an office on the 43rd floor of one of them. Used to feel like being on top of the world. Now it just felt like being trapped. His phone buzzed again. This time, a text from Emily. "Dad, I saw the news. Are you okay?" William stared at those 4 words. His daughter hadn't called him Dad in 3 years. Usually it was William or nothing at all. The fact that she was reaching out now when everything was falling apart made his chest tight. He started typing a response, then deleted it. Started again, deleted again. What was he supposed to say? That he'd spent 20 years building a company and neglecting his family, and now both were abandoning him. That her mother had been right when she'd filed for divorce 7 years ago, saying William loved his work more than he loved anyone. The light turned green. The car moved forward. William put his phone away without responding. The meeting with Jonathan happened at a restaurant on West Lower Wacker Drive, the kind of place where businessmen made deals they didn't want recorded. Dark lighting private booths waiters who knew how to be deaf when necessary. Jonathan was already there when William arrived, sitting in the corner booth with a scotch in front of him. He stood up when he saw William extending his hand like they were still friends. William didn't take it. "Sit down, William. Let's talk like adults." "Adults don't stab each other in the back," William said, sliding into the booth anyway. Jonathan sighed, taking a sip of his drink. "Is that what you think this is, William? I'm trying to save the company." Someone has to take responsibility for the breach, and unfortunately, the trail leads to you. The trail you created. I created nothing. I just followed the evidence. Jonathan leaned forward, his voice dropping. Look, I know this feels personal, but it's not. It's business. You taught me that. Remember, don't let emotion cloud judgment. William wanted to reach across the table and grab Jonathan by his designer tie, wanted to shout that this wasn't just business, that 20 years of partnership meant something. But he didn't, because maybe Jonathan was right. Maybe William had taught him too well. What do you want? William asked quietly. I want you to step down. Quietly. Take your severance, retire early. Enjoy your life. The board will smooth everything over. The lawsuit will settle, and Harrington Systems will survive. Without me. Without the liability you've become. Jonathan finished his scotch, signaled for another. I'm sorry, William. I really am. But this is how it has to be. William stood up. His hands were shaking, but he kept his voice steady. You know what the worst part is? I actually believed you were my friend. Jonathan looked up at him, and for just a second, William thought he saw something like regret cross his face, but it disappeared as fast as it came. We were never friends, William. We were business partners. There's a difference. William walked out of the restaurant and into the rain. His driver had gone home for the night. William had told Santos he'd call for a car later, that he needed to walk and think. Now he stood in the rain on Lower Wacker Drive, watching cars pass on the level above him, their headlights creating streaks of light through the downpour. He was 55 years old, rich enough to never work again, powerful enough that people still returned his calls, at least for now. But standing there in the rain, William realized he'd never felt more powerless in his entire life. His phone rang. Emily again. This time he answered. Hey, sweetie. Dad, where are you? Are you okay? I'm fine, just dealing with some things. I saw what Jonathan's saying in the press. Dad, that's not true, is it? You didn't ignore the security warnings. William leaned against the concrete wall, cold rain soaking through his $1,000 suit. It's complicated, Em. That's not an answer. I know. William closed his eyes. How's Europe? I'm actually in New York. My flight got delayed. Dad, talk to me. Please. William wanted to tell her everything. How Jonathan had betrayed him, how the board was turning against him, how 20 years of work was crumbling around him. But the words stuck in his throat, trapped behind years of keeping everything professional, everything controlled. I have to go, Em. I'll call you tomorrow. Dad, wait. He hung up. The phone immediately rang again, but William didn't answer. Instead, he started walking, no destination in mind, just moving, because standing still felt like drowning. His chest felt tight. Probably stress, probably the weight of everything collapsing at once. William loosened his tie, tried to breathe deeper, but the tightness wouldn't go away. He stopped walking, leaned against a concrete pillar. The rain was coming down harder now, and there was no one around, just empty streets and the echo of traffic somewhere above. The tightness in his chest got worse. His left arm started to tingle. No, William said out loud, not now, not like this. But his body wasn't listening. The tingling spread, his vision blurred, and suddenly William was on his knees in the rain, one hand pressed against the concrete, trying to keep himself upright. His phone was in his pocket. He tried to reach for it, but his fingers wouldn't cooperate. The phone slipped out, clattered to the ground, and slid into a puddle. The screen flickered once, then went dark. No signal. No one around. No one coming to help. William Harrington, CEO of an $800 million company, collapsed face first into the rain, completely and utterly alone. Marcus had learned a long time ago that Chicago's Lower Wacker Drive was a good place to find things people dropped. Wallets sometimes if you got lucky, mostly just trash. But trash could be valuable if you knew what to look for. He was walking along the underpass when he saw the man lying on the ground. At first, Marcus thought it was another homeless person, maybe someone who'd had too much to drink, passed out in the rain. Happened all the time down here. But as he got closer, he realized this guy was wearing a suit, an expensive one. Marcus stopped about 10 feet away, hesitating. He'd learned the hard way what happened when homeless people got too close to rich folks. Security guards, police, accusations. It didn't matter if you were trying to help. When you were homeless, people assumed the worst. But the man wasn't moving, not even a little. Hey, Marcus called out. You okay? No response. Marcus looked around. The street was empty. No cars, no people, just rain and shadows. He could walk away, should walk away. This wasn't his problem. But then the man's hand twitched and Marcus saw his face turned sideways in the puddle, lips moving like he was trying to say something. "Damn it," Marcus muttered and walked over. He knelt down beside the man, careful not to touch him yet. Up close, he could see this guy was maybe mid-50s gray at the temple's wedding ring, tan line, but no ring. His eyes were half open, unfocused. "Sir, can you hear me?" The man's lips moved again. "Emily." Marcus had seen this before. Years ago, when Daniel was in the hospital, there had been a man in the waiting room who had a stroke. Same look in his eyes, same way of moving his mouth without making sounds. "Okay, listen to me," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm. "I think you're having a stroke. I need to get you to a hospital. Can you move at all?" The man tried to lift his arm, but it just flopped back down. Marcus looked around again. Still nobody. He pulled out the flip phone he'd gotten from a shelter program, but there was no signal down here. Never was. He could run and find help, but by the time he got back, this guy might be dead. The hospital was maybe 15 blocks away, in the rain, uphill. Marcus looked at the man lying in the puddle, then at his own reflection in the water. He thought about Daniel, about sitting in that hospital waiting room watching his son die because nobody would help without money up front. "I didn't let my son die alone," Marcus said quietly. "I'm not leaving you either." He took off his jacket, the only decent one he had, and covered the man's chest. Then he worked his arms under the guy's shoulders, grunting with effort as he pulled him into a sitting position. "This is going to hurt," Marcus said, "but I need you to stay with me. Okay, don't fall asleep. You hear me? Don't sleep." The man's eyes focused on Marcus for just a second, and Marcus saw something there. Recognition, maybe, or just fear. Hard to tell. Marcus got himself positioned, then pulled the man up onto his back in a fireman's carry. The guy was heavy, probably 180, and Marcus hadn't eaten a real meal in 2 days. His legs shook as he stood up, water pouring off both of them. "Please don't sleep," Marcus whispered, starting to walk. "I'm begging you, don't sleep." The first block was the hardest. Marcus's legs burned, his back screamed, and his lungs felt like they were full of broken glass. The man on his back was a dead weight, occasionally mumbling something Marcus couldn't understand. "Come on," Marcus said through gritted teeth. "Stay with me." Rain pelted them both. Marcus's shoes already worn through at the soles filled with water. Each step splashed. Each step was agony. At the corner of Wacker and Franklin, a car slowed down. Marcus felt hope surge in his chest. "Help!" he shouted. "This man needs a hospital." The car's windows were up. Through the rain-streaked glass, Marcus could see a couple inside, the woman saying something to the man driving. Then the locks clicked. The car sped away. Marcus stood there for a moment, rain running down his face, and laughed. It was either laugh or scream. "It's okay," he said to the man on his back. "We don't need them." Another block. His knees were shaking now, threatening to give out. The man's breathing was getting shallower. "Talk to me," Marcus said. "Say anything. Just stay awake." "Jonathan," the man mumbled. Don't do this." "That's good. Keep talking. Who's Jonathan?" "Betrayed." "Me?" "Yeah, well, people do that." Marcus adjusted his grip, kept walking. "But you're not dying tonight. You hear me? I already watched someone die because nobody would help. I'm not doing that again." At Michigan Avenue, Marcus had to stop. His vision was going black at the edges, and he was afraid if he didn't rest for 10 seconds, he'd collapse, and both of them would end up on the ground. He leaned against a building, the man still on his back. "Please," Marcus whispered, not sure if he was talking to God or the universe or just himself. "Please let me make it." A homeless man, Marcus recognized a guy named Ray, who usually panhandled near the Art Institute, walked past carrying a garbage bag full of cans. "Marcus, the hell you doing?" "Taking this man to Mercy General. He's having a stroke." Ray looked at the man on Marcus's back, then at Marcus. "Brother, you call 911 inches, no signal down on Wacker. You want me to call? No time, just, if you got any food, I could use it after." Ray dug in his pocket and pulled out a granola bar. "Here. You're crazy, man. You know that." "Yeah," Marcus said, pocketing the bar. "I know." He started walking again. The man mumbled something that sounded like, "Emily." "Sorry." "Who's Emily?" Marcus asked, just to keep him talking. "My daughter." "You got a daughter. That's good. She probably wants to see you again, so stay awake." "Didn't call her back." "Well, you can call her tomorrow. Right now, just breathe." Another block, then another. At State Street, Marcus slipped on a patch of oil-slicked pavement. He went down hard on one knee, barely managing to keep the man from sliding off his back. Pain shot through his leg, and when he looked down, he saw his pants were torn, blood mixing with rainwater. "Come on," Marcus said to himself, struggling back to his feet. "You've carried heavier. Remember when you had to haul that track panel up the stairs? This is nothing." It wasn't nothing. His whole body was screaming at him to stop, to put the man down, to just give up. But Marcus thought about Daniel, about watching the machines get turned off, about the feeling of complete helplessness. He wasn't helpless now. Maybe he couldn't save his son, but he could save this man. Almost there, Marcus lied. They were maybe halfway. The man's breathing changed, became more labored. "No, no, no," Marcus said, walking faster, even though faster meant his legs might give out. "Stay with me. Come on, breathe. Just breathe." "Can't. Tried." "You haven't tried hard enough. Breathe." On Dearborn, a taxi drove past. Marcus tried to flag it down, but the driver looked at him, at his soaked clothes and homeless appearance, and kept going. "It's okay," Marcus said. "We're doing fine without them." His voice sounded weak even to himself. By the time they reached LaSalle Street, Marcus couldn't feel his legs anymore. They were moving on pure will, pure stubbornness, pure refusal to let another person die on his watch. The man was mumbling constantly now, words that ran together. "Jonathan, board meeting, Emily. I'm sorry. Tried to fix it. Not enough. Never enough." Marcus's throat was tight. "I know," he whispered. "I know what it feels like when you try and it's not enough, but sometimes trying is all we got." The rain was letting up slightly, but it didn't matter. They were both soaked to the bone, both shaking from cold. Marcus could see the lights of Mercy General in the distance. Now, maybe 4 more blocks. "See that?" he said. "That's where we're going. Just hold on." His foot caught on a broken piece of sidewalk, and he stumbled, almost went down. Only the wall next to him kept them both upright. Marcus leaned there, gasping, every muscle in his body on fire. "I can't," he said out loud. The man on his back didn't respond. "I can't do this," Marcus said again. But then he thought about Daniel's last night, thought about falling asleep in that chair, about waking up to find his son gone, about the guilt that lived in his chest every single day. The voice that said, if you'd stayed awake, if you'd been there, maybe things would be different. "Yes, you can," Marcus said to himself. "You can because you have to." He pushed off the wall and kept walking. 3 blocks, 2 blocks. The man's breathing was barely there now, it just shallow little gasps. "Don't you dare," Marcus said. "Don't you dare die on me. I didn't carry you all this way for nothing." 1 block. The emergency room entrance was right there, bright lights, and automatic doors, and people in scrubs. Marcus's legs finally gave out. He collapsed 20 feet from the entrance, the man sliding off his back. Marcus tried to get up, tried to drag him the rest of the way, but his body was done. "Help!" he shouted, his voice barely more than a croak. "Somebody help!" A security guard came running out, then nurses. Then everyone was shouting and moving, and people were lifting the man onto a stretcher, and Marcus was still on his hands and knees trying to breathe, trying to explain. "Stroke," Marcus gasped. "I think he had a stroke about an hour ago. Please." Someone grabbed Marcus's arm. He looked up and saw a police officer. "Sir, stand up slowly. Keep your hands where I can see them." I saved him." "That man is a very wealthy individual, and he's wearing a $60,000 watch. Want to explain why you were carrying him through the streets?" Marcus looked down at the man being wheeled through the emergency room doors. Only then did he notice the expensive watch on the man's wrist, the designer suit, the gold cufflinks. "I was helping him," Marcus said. "That's all. I swear." More police arrived. Someone was taking pictures of Marcus, of his torn clothes, of the blood on his knee. "Sir, I need you to put your hands behind your back. I didn't do anything wrong." But they were already putting handcuffs on him, already reading him his rights. Through the emergency room windows, Marcus could see doctors working on the man he'd carried, see them cutting away his suit, hooking him up to machines. The emergency room doors closed, and Marcus stood outside in handcuffs alone again. The police station smelled like bad coffee and broken dreams. Marcus sat in an interrogation room, hands still cuffed behind him, shivering in his wet clothes. Nobody had offered him a towel. Nobody had offered him anything except suspicious looks. The detective who walked in was maybe 40, built like he'd played football in high school and never quite let it go. He dropped a folder on the table and sat down, studying Marcus like he was a bug under a microscope. "Marcus Reed," the detective said, opening the folder. Want to tell me what you were doing with William Harrington tonight? Who's William Harrington? Don't play stupid. The man you were carrying through downtown. I don't know his name. I found him collapsed on Lower Wacker Drive. He was having a stroke, so I carried him to the hospital. The detective leaned back, arms crossed. That's a nice story. Here's what I think happened. I think you saw a rich guy alone in the rain, saw an opportunity, and things got out of hand. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. I was helping him. Then why did you have his wallet? I don't have his wallet. The detective pulled out an evidence bag with a leather wallet inside. We found this in your jacket pocket, the same jacket that was covering Mr. Harrington when paramedics arrived. Marcus stared at the wallet. He'd put his jacket over the man to keep him warm. The wallet must have fallen out of the man's pocket and ended up in his. I didn't steal anything, Marcus said. Check the wallet. Is anything missing? $700 in cash, 3 credit cards, driver's license. So nothing's missing, because I didn't take anything. The detective leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me the truth. Did Mr. Harrington resist when you tried to rob him? Is that why he ended up hurt? He had a stroke. I didn't hurt him. I saved him by carrying him through the streets for an hour instead of calling 911 inches. There was no signal down there. I had to get him to the hospital. The detective wrote something in his notepad. This isn't your first run-in with law enforcement, is it, Marcus? Marcus's jaw tightened. I got arrested once for sleeping in a park. That's it. Never hurt anybody. Never stole anything. Says you. Check my record. I did. You've been homeless for 4 years. Lost your job at the CTA. Lost your housing. Got a history of mental health treatment after your son died. Grief counseling isn't mental health treatment. Sounds like a man who's desperate, who might see a rich guy alone and think this is his chance. Marcus wanted to scream, wanted to flip the table and break something. Instead, he just sat there, cuffed and shivering, and said the only thing he could think of. I just didn't want him to die. The detective looked at him for a long moment. That's what they all say. They held Marcus for 6 hours before a lawyer showed up. Her name was Rachel Kim, and she was maybe 30, wearing a suit that looked slept in and carrying a briefcase held together with duct tape. Mr. Reed, I'm with the Public Defender's Office. They're releasing you, but I need you to understand something. This case is going to get media attention. William Harrington is a prominent CEO, and the optics of a homeless man carrying him through the streets are not good. I saved his life, Marcus said. I believe you. But belief doesn't matter. What matters is what we can prove, and right now the narrative is working against you. What narrative? Rachel showed him her phone. The headline read, Homeless Man Arrested After CEO Found Unconscious. Marcus's stomach dropped. They're making me sound like I attacked him. Because that's the story that sells, Rachel said quietly. A homeless man saving a CEO's life doesn't fit people's worldview. But a homeless man attacking a CEO that confirms everything they want to believe about people like you. People like me. Poor people. Desperate people. People they can ignore until you become a threat. Marcus laughed bitterly. I spent an hour carrying that man through the rain because I couldn't let him die. And this is what I get. Unfortunately, yes. Rachel started packing up her briefcase. My advice, stay away from the press. Don't talk to anyone. Let this blow over. Let it blow over, lady. I'm homeless. I can't hide. Rachel looked at him with something like pity. Then God help you, Mr. Reed. The news hit the next morning. Marcus woke up under the Congress Parkway Bridge to find a TV news crew trying to film him. He recognized the reporter, a woman who usually covered crime stories with breathless urgency. Mr. Reed, can you comment on the attack? I didn't attack anyone. Sources say you were found with Mr. Harrington's wallet. Is that true? I was helping him, but they weren't listening. The camera was rolling, catching every word, twisting every explanation into something sinister. By that afternoon, Marcus's face was everywhere. Not his real face, though. They'd used an old mugshot from his park arrest, made him look dangerous, made him look like exactly the kind of person who would hurt someone. The other homeless people around the station started avoiding him. Even Tommy, who'd shared food with Marcus for months, wouldn't make eye contact. People are saying you robbed that rich guy, Tommy said finally. I didn't. I know. But it doesn't matter what's true. It matters what people think. That night, when Marcus tried to sleep in his usual spot, a group of teenagers came by. Hey, you're that guy, the one who attacked that CEO. I didn't attack anyone. One of them threw a bottle. It shattered against the wall near Marcus's head. Get out of here. We don't want criminals around. Marcus gathered his few belongings and moved to a different spot. Then another, then another. Every place he went, someone recognized him, shouted at him, told him to leave. By the third day, Marcus found himself sitting under an overpass in the rain, alone, holding Daniel's picture. "Maybe I should have let him die," he whispered. "Maybe that would have been easier." The photograph stared back at him. Daniel's smile, bright and innocent. Marcus put the picture away and cried. The newspaper headlines got worse. Vagrant targets wealthy executive. Is your city safe? Homeless violence on the rise. CO recovering after street attack. Every article twisted the story. Every report made Marcus sound like a predator. None of them mentioned that William Harrington had been having a stroke. None of them mentioned that Marcus had carried him for over an hour to save his life. They only mentioned the wallet, the expensive suit, the unconscious CEO, and the homeless man who'd been found with him. Rachel Kim called Marcus on his flip phone. "I need you to come to my office. We need to talk about next steps." "What next steps?" "They released me. The DA is considering pressing charges, attempted robbery, assault. They're building a case." Marcus sat down on the curb, suddenly dizzy. "For helping someone." "For being poor in the wrong place at the wrong time," Rachel said quietly. "I'm sorry, Marcus. I'm doing everything I can, but public pressure is intense. The Harrington family's lawyers are involved now, and they're pushing for prosecution. Can I talk to him to Harrington? If he wakes up, he'll tell them what really happened. He's in a medically induced coma. Even when he wakes up, there might be memory loss from the stroke. He might not remember anything." Marcus hung up and sat there on the curb, watching cars go by. Nobody stopped to ask if he was okay. Nobody cared. He was just part of the scenery again, except now he was dangerous scenery. Scenery people crossed the street to avoid. That night, Marcus went back to Jackson Station. His old spot by the entrance was taken by someone else, a younger guy who looked at Marcus with fear. "This is my spot," Marcus said. "I heard what you did, man. I don't want trouble." "I didn't do anything." "That's what they all say." Marcus walked away. Found a new spot 3 blocks over behind a dumpster that smelled like rotting food. It was better than nothing. He pulled out Daniel's picture one more time. "I tried, son," he whispered. "I tried to do the right thing. But maybe your old man's just not meant for doing right." A police car drove by slowly. Marcus quickly put the picture away, made himself small, invisible. The car kept going. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to sleep, but all he could see was William Harrington's face in the rain lips, moving, trying to say something. "I should have walked away," Marcus said to the darkness. "I should have just walked away." But he hadn't, and now he was paying for it. Day 3, Mercy General Hospital, 6:47 a.m. William Harrington's eyes opened to a world that didn't make sense. White. Everything was white. The ceiling, the walls, the sheets covering him. For a moment he thought he'd died, that this was what came after. Just endless white and the beeping of machines that counted out whatever time meant in this place. His head felt like someone had filled it with wet cement. Thoughts moved slowly, disconnecting and reconnecting in patterns that didn't quite fit together. He tried to lift his hand, and it responded, but sluggishly, like he was moving through water. "Mr. Harrington." A face appeared above him. A woman, maybe 50, wearing scrubs with little hearts on them. Her voice was gentle, the kind nurses used when they weren't sure if you could understand them yet. "Can you hear me, Mr. Harrington?" William opened his mouth. His throat was dry, words sticking somewhere between his brain and his tongue. "Yes," he finally managed. The nurse smiled, relief washing over her face. "That's wonderful. I'm Maria. You're at Mercy General Hospital. You had a stroke 3 days ago. Do you remember anything?" Stroke. The word triggered something in William's mind. Images flashing like broken film. Rain, concrete, darkness, and something else. Something important. "Water," William croaked. Maria held a cup with a straw to his lips. The water was the best thing he'd ever tasted. Cold and real, and proof that he was still alive. "I'm going to get Dr. Patel," Maria said. "He's been waiting for you to wake up." She left, and William was alone again with his fragmented thoughts. He closed his eyes and tried to remember, tried to pull the pieces together into something that made sense. The restaurant. Jonathan's face across the table, delivering the betrayal with the casualness of someone ordering coffee. "We were never friends, William. We were business partners." The rain. Walking through it, chest tight, unable to breathe properly. Thinking about Emily, about all the calls he'd never returned, all the birthdays he'd missed. Then, what falling? Yes, he remembered falling. The pavement rushing up to meet him. the phone slipping from his fingers, the terrible understanding that he was going to die alone on a street in Chicago and nobody would even know for hours. But he hadn't died. Why hadn't he died? William's eyes snapped open as another memory surfaced. Not clear, not complete, just a sensation. Hands, someone lifting him, a voice cutting through the fog of pain and fear. Don't sleep. Please, I'm begging you. Don't sleep. Who said that? Who was there? The door opened again. This time, it wasn't Maria. Dr. Patel walked in, flanked by two other doctors William didn't recognize. They all wore the same expression, professional concern mixed with curiosity. William knew that look. He'd seen it in boardrooms before when people were trying to figure out if he was going to be a problem or an asset. "Mr. Harrington, welcome back." Dr. Patel pulled up a chair, sat down like they were old friends having coffee. "How are you feeling?" Confused, William said honestly. "That's completely normal. You suffered an ischemic stroke, which means a blood clot blocked blood flow to part of your brain. We were able to administer clot-busting medication, but there was some damage. You've been in a medically induced coma for the past 3 days while your brain healed." William processed this slowly. 3 days. He'd lost 3 days. "Memory issues are common after this type of stroke," Dr. Patel continued. "What's the last thing you remember clearly?" "A meeting with my business partner. William paused, the details fuzzy. "We argued about something. Then I was walking in the rain." "Good. That's very good. Do you remember what happened next?" William frowned, concentrating. "I fell. My chest hurt. Everything went dark, but not completely dark. There was—" He struggled for the words. "Someone was there." The doctors exchanged glances. Something passed between them that William couldn't read. "Mr. Harrington," Dr. Patel said carefully, "when you were brought to the hospital, you weren't alone. A man was with you, carried you from Lower Wacker Drive to our emergency entrance. Do you remember him?" William closed his eyes, trying to see past the fog, rain hitting his face, cold concrete under him, the terrible knowledge that his body wasn't responding, that he was dying. And then, warmth, a jacket being draped over him, the smell of it old and worn, but offered freely. "I didn't let my son die alone. I'm not leaving you either." William's eyes snapped open. "He saved me." "Mr. Harrington!" "No." William's voice was stronger now, fighting past the weakness. "Someone saved me. I remember. Not everything, but hands lifting me. A voice telling me not to sleep. He kept me awake, kept me alive." One of the other doctors, a woman with gray hair pulled back tight, stepped forward. "Mr. Harrington, the man who was found with you is currently under investigation. When paramedics arrived, he had your wallet in his possession. We believe he may have been attempting to rob you." "No. Sir, you were unconscious. You were vulnerable. This individual saved my life." William tried to sit up, managed about 6 inches before dizziness forced him back. "Where is he? I want to talk to him." "That's not advisable," the gray-haired doctor said. "The police are still investigating, and your lawyers have advised against any contact." "I don't care what my lawyers say. Where is he?" "We don't know, sir. He was arrested, questioned, and released. But Mr. Harrington, I need you to understand the situation. This man is homeless. He has a record, and the evidence suggests nothing." William's hands gripped the bedsheets, trembling, but determined. "I remember him. Not his face, not his name, but I remember what he did. He didn't have to help me. He had every reason to walk away, but he didn't." Dr. Patel held up his hands in a calming gesture. "Mr. Harrington, you need to rest. Your brain is still healing. Memory issues are common, and sometimes the brain fills in gaps with things that seem real, but aren't entirely accurate. We just want to make sure I'm not confused." William's voice was sharp, now CEO mode, sliding back into place, despite the hospital gown and the IV in his arm. "I know what happened. Someone saved me. And instead of thanking him, we're treating him like a criminal." The doctors exchanged more glances. "Sir," the gray-haired doctor said slowly, "the media has been covering this story extensively. There are optics to consider." "Optics?" William laughed, and it hurt his chest. "Optics? A man saves my life, and we're worried about optics." "Mr. Harrington, you need to remain calm. Your blood pressure." "My blood pressure is fine. What's not fine is that I'm lying here alive because someone carried me through the rain for God knows how long, and nobody seems to care about finding him." Maria, who'd been standing quietly by the door, finally spoke up. "Mr. Harrington, if I may, I was on duty the night you were brought in. I saw the man who brought you. He was exhausted, soaking wet, injured, and when the police took him away, he didn't resist. He just kept saying, "I didn't want him to die," over and over. The room went quiet. William looked at her. "What happened to him?" "After he was released, I don't know." "But," she hesitated, "the news made him look bad. Really bad. Like he attacked you. I wanted to say something to tell them what I saw, but I was told not to get involved." "Why not?" Maria's eyes were wet now. "Because I'm just a nurse. Nobody listens to nurses, especially when it contradicts what everyone wants to believe." William felt something crack inside his chest. Not physical this time, something deeper. He thought about the voice in the rain. "I already watched someone die because nobody would help. I'm not doing that again." Someone who'd already lost something. Someone who knew what it felt like to be powerless. "Find him," William said, looking at each person in the room. "I don't care what it takes. Find him." Dr. Patel sighed. "Mr. Harrington, you need to focus on your recovery. The next few days are critical. You can worry about everything else later." "No, I'll worry about it now." William reached for the call button, pressed it. "I need my phone. I need to make calls." "You're in no condition." "Get me my phone." The force of his voice sent a spike of pain through his head, but William didn't care. For 3 days, he'd been unconscious while someone who saved his life was being destroyed by the media, by the police, by everyone who saw a homeless man and assumed the worst. Another nurse came in response to the call button. "Mr. Harrington, is everything okay?" "I need my personal belongings, specifically my phone." The nurse looked at Dr. Patel, who shook his head slightly, but William saw it. "Now, or I'm checking myself out of this hospital and finding it myself." "Sir, you can barely stand." "Then I'll crawl, but I'm getting my phone." There was a long moment of tense silence. Finally, Dr. Patel nodded at the nurse. "Get him the phone. But Mr. Harrington, I'm formally advising against this. You need rest, not stress. What I need is to fix what's broken, and right now that's more important than rest." 20 minutes later, William's phone had survived the puddle better than he'd expected. A little water damage, but it turned on. The screen was cracked, but readable. 47 missed calls now. Messages from his lawyers, his PR team, the board. One from Emily that just said, "Please call me back. I'm worried." William called her first. She answered before the first ring finished. "Dad. Oh my God, Dad, you're awake." "Hey, sweetie." He heard her breath catch, then a sob. "They said you might not wake up. They said the stroke was severe, that there could be brain damage, that—" "I'm okay, Em. I'm here. I've been calling the hospital every day. They wouldn't tell me anything except that you were stable. Dad, I was so scared." William's throat was tight. "I'm sorry. I should have called you back that night, before all this happened." "It doesn't matter. You're okay. That's all that matters." "No, it does matter. Emily, I need to tell you something. When I was dying on that street, all I could think about was you. About all the times I chose work over you. All the moments I missed. And I realized that if I died right then, you'd remember me as the father who was never there." Emily was crying harder now. "Dad, don't—" "Someone saved me. A homeless man. Carried me through the rain when everyone else drove past. And now the media is destroying him, calling him a criminal, when he's the only reason I'm alive to have this conversation." There was a pause. "What do you need?" "I need you to help me find him. His name is Marcus Reed. I need to know where he is, what's happening to him. Can you do that?" "Dad, you just woke up from a coma. You should be resting." "I've rested enough." "Will you help me?" Another pause, longer this time, then, "Okay. Yeah, I'll help you. But Dad." "Yeah. When this is over, we need to talk. Really talk. About everything." "I know. And we will. I promise." After he hung up, William lay back against the pillows, exhausted but determined. Maria came in to check his vitals. "Your blood pressure is elevated. You need to calm down, Mr. Harrington." "I will, once I fix this." "You really don't remember what he looks like, the man who saved you." William shook his head. "It's frustrating. I remember sensations, feelings, words, but faces are blank. The doctors say that might come back, or it might not." "Well," Maria said quietly, "I remember him. If that helps." "Tell me." "Older, maybe early 50s. Black man, thin, worn down by life. His hands were rough working hands. And his eyes—" She paused. "His eyes were kind. Even when the police were handcuffing him, even when everyone was treating him like a criminal, his eyes were just sad. Not angry, just sad." William closed his eyes and tried to imagine it, tried to match the voice in his memory with Maria's description. He said something while they were taking him away, Maria continued. He looked back at the emergency room doors where they'd taken you and he said, "Just don't let him die." Like that was all that mattered to him. And then what happened? Then they put him in the police car and drove away. And I went back to work because that's what we do here. We see miracles and tragedies every day, and we just keep moving. William opened his eyes and looked at her. You feel guilty. It wasn't a question. Maria's professional mask cracked slightly. I should have said something. Should have told someone that it didn't look like a robbery, that it looked like someone who'd just done the hardest thing in the world and was being punished for it. Why didn't you? Because I was scared. Scared of losing my job, scared of making things worse. And now, she shook her head. Now I have to live with watching a good man get destroyed because I didn't have the courage to speak up. It's not too late, William said. When I find him, I'll need someone who was there that night, someone who saw what really happened. Would you be willing to tell your story then? Maria looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Yes. Yes, I would. Thank you. After she left, William picked up his phone again, started making a list of everyone he needed to contact, private investigators, lawyers who specialized in criminal defense, PR firms that could help reshape the narrative. His hands shook as he typed weakness from the stroke, making every movement difficult. But he didn't stop. Someone had saved his life when they had every reason not to, had given him a jacket when they probably only owned one, had carried him through the rain when their own body was giving out. And William Harrington, who'd spent 20 years building an empire, was going to spend whatever time he had left making sure that person wasn't destroyed for doing the right thing. His phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Found him. Marcus Reed, 52, homeless since 2020. Last known location, Congress Parkway Bridge. Dad, the articles about him are bad. Really bad. William typed back. Send me everything you find. I'm going to fix this. When? As soon as I can stand without falling over. Dad, you need to recover first. I've recovered enough. William set his phone down and looked at the ceiling. Somewhere in Chicago, Marcus Reed was probably hiding, probably scared, probably wondering if saving a stranger's life was the worst decision he'd ever made. I'm coming, William whispered to the empty room. Just hold on a little longer. Day 7, William's hospital room, 2:34 p.m. The doctor said William needed another week in the hospital, maybe 2. His body was still weak, his left side slow to respond, his memory patchy in places. They said pushing too hard, too fast could trigger another stroke, could kill him. William signed himself out anyway. This is against medical advice, Dr. Patel said for the 4th time, watching William button up a shirt with trembling fingers. You understand that, right? If something happens, if you have another stroke, we're not responsible. I understand. William fumbled with the buttons. His fingers weren't quite responding the way they should. Everything took twice as long as it used to. Emily stood by the door, arms crossed, looking worried and frustrated in equal measure. Dad, this is insane. You can barely walk. I can walk well enough. You fell trying to get to the bathroom this morning. Because I was rushing. I'll take my time. You're being stubborn. I'm being necessary. William finally got the last button done, looked at his daughter. Someone saved my life. While I've been lying in this bed, he's been out there facing consequences for doing the right thing. Every day I wait is another day he suffers. But you're sick. I'm alive. That's more than I'd be without him. Dr. Patel shook his head. At least let us arrange home care. A nurse who can stay with you, help with medication, watch for warning signs. Fine, arrange it. But I'm leaving today. Emily pulled out her phone, scrolled through something. I hired a private investigator like you asked. Found Marcus Reed's last known locations, talked to people who know him. Dad, his life has fallen apart. The media destroyed him. He's been chased out of 3 different spots. One article called him a danger to society. People are scared of him now. William felt his jaw tighten. Show me what you found. Emily handed him her phone. On the screen was a folder of documents, photos, articles, interview transcripts. William scrolled through them, slowly reading each one. Homeless man's history of violence. The article was pure fiction. Marcus Reed had 1 arrest for trespassing while sleeping in a park. That was it. But they'd spun it into something sinister. CEO's family demands justice. Except William's family hadn't demanded anything. His ex-wife, probably prompted by lawyers, had made one statement about being grateful William survived and hoping justice is served. The media turned that into a crusade. Vagrant's past reveals pattern of instability. This one made William angry. They dug up records of Marcus's son's death, his job loss, his wife leaving, presented all of it as evidence of mental problems rather than a man being crushed by circumstances. "This is character assassination," William said quietly. "It's what media does," Emily said. "They found a narrative that sells and ran with it. Homeless man attacks CEO is a better story than homeless man saves CEO, because one confirms what people already believe and the other makes them uncomfortable." "Exactly." William handed the phone back. "Where is he now?" "According to the investigator, probably under the Congress Parkway Bridge. It's where he goes when he has nowhere else." "But Dad, even if we find him, what then? You can barely walk. You think he's going to trust you? Trust anyone." "I don't know, but I have to try." Congress Parkway Bridge, 4:17 p.m. The Uber driver kept glancing at William in the rear-view mirror, like he was worried his passenger might die in the back seat, which, to be fair, was a legitimate concern. "You sure you want me to drop you here?" the driver asked. "This isn't a great neighborhood." "I'm sure," William said. "You want me to wait?" "No, thank you." Emily helped William out of the car. He was wearing a simple jacket and jeans, nothing expensive, no watch, no jewelry, trying to look as unthreatening as possible, though he suspected his face had probably been on the news enough that it wouldn't matter. The walk from the curb to the bridge underpass was maybe 50 yards. It took William 3 minutes. "You okay?" Emily kept asking. "Do you need to rest?" "I'm fine." He wasn't fine. His legs felt like rubber, his breathing was labored, and the leftover weakness from the stroke made every step a negotiation with his own body. But he kept walking. Under the bridge, the light changed, darker here, shadowed. The smell hit them next. Urine, garbage, desperation. The smell of people who had nowhere else to go. There were maybe 6 or 7 people scattered around, some sleeping on cardboard, others just sitting staring at nothing. One man was shouting at invisible enemies. Another was sorting through a shopping cart full of cans. None of them looked at William and Emily. Survival on the streets meant minding your own business. "You see him," Emily whispered. William scanned the faces, but the problem was he didn't know what Marcus looked like. He'd been unconscious, remembered only fragments. Hands, a voice, not a face. "Excuse me," William said to the man with the shopping cart. "I'm looking for someone. Marcus Reed." The man looked at William like he was speaking a foreign language, then went back to sorting cans. William tried again, approaching a woman wrapped in blankets. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you. Do you know Marcus Reed?" The woman's eyes went wide. She scrambled backward, shaking her head. "I don't know nothing. Leave me alone." "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just need to talk to him." "Don't know him. Never seen him. Go away." Emily touched William's arm. "Dad, they're scared of you." "Why would they be scared of me?" "Because you look like authority, like someone who might call the cops or make their lives harder. Down here, strangers asking questions is never a good thing." William hadn't thought about that. In his world, people answered when he asked questions. But here, under this bridge, he was the threat. They walked further into the underpass. In the far corner, William saw a figure sitting alone, separate from the others, a man head down holding something. William started toward him, and Emily followed. As they got closer, William could see him better. Black man, thin, early 50s maybe, wearing a jacket that had seen better days, jeans torn at the knees. And in his hands, protected in a plastic bag, was a photograph. The man looked up as they approached. His eyes were wary, defensive, ready to run or fight, whichever became necessary. "Marcus Reed?" William asked. The man's expression didn't change. "Who's asking?" "My name is William Harrington." Recognition flashed across Marcus's face, followed immediately by something that looked like anger, or maybe fear. Hard to tell. "You should leave," Marcus said, looking back down at the photograph. "I didn't steal anything from you. Wallets with the police. Everything was there. I saved your life, and if that's not enough, then there's nothing else to say." William felt his legs starting to shake from standing. He looked around, saw a concrete support beam, and carefully lowered himself to sit against it. The movement was clumsy, ungraceful. Marcus watched him with suspicious eyes. "I'm not here to accuse you of anything," William said once he was sitting. "I'm here to thank you." Marcus laughed, but it was bitter. "Thank me. Right. That why you had me arrested?" "I didn't have you arrested. I was unconscious." "And when you woke up, did you tell them I saved you? Did you set the record straight?" "I just got out of the hospital 3 hours ago. First thing I did was come here to find you." Marcus studied him, trying to determine if this was truth or manipulation. Why? Because you saved my life. So what? You want to write me a check? Make yourself feel better? Then go back to your mansion. No. William's voice was quiet. I want to make this right. Can't make it right. My life's been destroyed. Before you, I was invisible, but at least I was left alone. Now I'm visible in the worst way. People recognize me, spit at me, throw things. I can't go back to my old spots because everyone thinks I'm dangerous. Marcus looked down at the photograph again. You want to make it right? You can't. Some things can't be fixed with money. Emily, who'd been standing quietly, spoke up. What's that, the picture? Marcus's hand tightened on it protectively. None of your business. My name's Emily. I'm William's daughter. Good for you. The investigator we hired told us about your son, Daniel. I'm sorry. Marcus's expression cracked slightly. Don't talk about him like you knew him. You're right. I didn't know him. But my dad told me something while we were looking for you. He said when he was dying on that street, he heard you say something about not letting someone die alone. Marcus looked away. You were talking about Daniel, weren't you? Emily continued softly. You couldn't save him, so you saved my dad. I saved your dad because leaving someone to die is wrong. That's it. Don't make it some beautiful story. William spoke again. The night you found me, I'd just been betrayed by someone I trusted for 20 years. My company was falling apart. My daughter hadn't spoken to me in years, and I realized I was going to die alone because I'd spent my whole life pushing people away. And then you appeared. You didn't know me. You had every reason to walk past, but you didn't. So I want to understand why. You'd already lost everything. Society had already failed you. Why would you help someone who represents everything that's left you behind? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he held up the photograph so William could see. A young boy, maybe 11, grinning at the camera in a Bulls jersey. This is Daniel, Marcus said. My son. He died because I couldn't afford to save him. Because in this country, your kid's life has a price tag, and mine didn't have enough zeros. His voice cracked slightly. After he died, I had a choice. I could become bitter angry, the kind of person who'd walk past someone dying because the world walked past me. Or I could remember that every person matters even when the world says they don't. If I'd become the first kind of person, Marcus continued, then Daniel died for nothing. His death would have just created more cruelty, more suffering. But if I stayed the second kind, then maybe his death meant something. Maybe it made me into someone who wouldn't let another person die alone no matter what. William felt his throat tighten. That's why you helped me. I helped you because it was the right thing to do. And doing the right thing got me labeled a criminal, got me chased out of every place I tried to sleep, got me nothing but more pain. Marcus looked directly at William. So forgive me if your thanks feels empty. What if it's not just thanks? William asked. What if I told you I want to set up a fund in Daniel's name, free emergency surgeries for kids whose families can't afford them? No questions, no delays. Just help when it's needed. Marcus stared at him. Why would you do that? Because you showed me something I'd forgotten, that the measure of a person isn't their bank account or their job title. It's what they do when no one's watching, when there's no reward except knowing you did right. William leaned forward slightly. I've spent 20 years building an empire, making money, gaining power, climbing ladders, and when I was dying, none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was you carrying me through the rain. I don't want your charity. It's not charity, it's justice. Daniel deserved to live. Every kid like him deserves to live, and maybe we can't bring him back, but we can make sure other kids don't die because their parents can't afford to save them. Marcus looked at the photograph again at his son's smile. You'd really do that. I will do it, with or without you, but I'd rather do it with you. You know what it's like to be on that side, to be told your child's life isn't worth saving unless you have money. We need that perspective. I'm homeless. I'm not exactly qualified to run a foundation. You're someone who understands what matters. That's the only qualification I need, Emily added, and we can help with the other stuff. Get you housing, get you stable, not as charity, but as payment for helping run the fund. Marcus laughed, but this time it sounded less bitter. You're serious. Completely, William said. Why? Why do all this for me? Because when you saved me, you didn't just save my body. You saved... William struggled for the words. You saved the part of me that still knew how to be human. I'd forgotten that. Spent so long in boardrooms and power plays that I'd forgotten people could just help each other. No contracts, no negotiations, just kindness. Marcus was quiet for a very long time. Traffic rumbled overhead. Somewhere in the underpass, someone was coughing, the sounds of poverty, of people surviving despite the world's indifference. Okay, Marcus finally said. Okay, I'll help with the fund, but not for me, for people like Daniel, for kids who deserve a chance. William felt relief wash through him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm not doing this to absolve your guilt or make you feel like a good person. I'm doing it because if even one kid gets to live because of it, then maybe Daniel's death wasn't completely meaningless. Fair enough. William tried to stand, but his legs weren't cooperating. Emily helped him, pulling him to his feet. He swayed, slightly dizzy. Marcus stood too, watching. You okay? Stroke recovery is slow. You should be in the hospital. Probably. But finding you is more important. Marcus looked at him for a long moment, then held out his hand. Marcus Reed. William took it. The handshake was firm, the hands rough from years of work and years of survival. William Harrington, though you probably already figured that out. Saw your face a lot on the news, mostly them talking about how I tried to rob you. We're going to fix that. First thing tomorrow, I'm calling a press conference, setting the record straight. Press conference. Marcus shook his head. Man, your world is different from mine. Maybe, but maybe it doesn't have to be. 30 minutes later, outside the underpass, William had called for a car. It was on its way. Emily stood nearby on her phone trying to arrange emergency housing for Marcus, but Marcus wasn't convinced yet. I don't know about this, Marcus said. Moving into some apartment working with you. It feels like charity. It's not charity. It's partnership. William leaned against the concrete support, still too weak to stand for long periods. You have something I need. Real understanding of what it's like to be on the other side, to be ignored, dismissed, treated like you don't matter. And you have money. I have resources, but resources without purpose are just assets on a spreadsheet. I want to build something that actually helps people. Can't do that without someone who knows what help actually looks like from the receiving end. A car pulled up. Not the one William had called. This one was a beat-up Honda, and a woman got out. She was maybe 60, carrying a bag of groceries. Marcus, she called out, I brought the stuff you asked for. Marcus walked over to her, and they talked quietly. William watched as Marcus took the bag, looked inside, then handed most of it back. That's too much, Mrs. Chen. Keep some for yourself. I bought it for the group. And they'll get some. But you need to eat too. Mrs. Chen smiled, patted Marcus's arm, then got back in her car and drove away. William watched this exchange with interest. Friend of yours. She brings food sometimes, helps people down here. Marcus walked back, still carrying the bag. World's not as simple as you think. Not all help comes from rich people and foundations. I'm learning that. The car William had called finally arrived. A black sedan professional driver, the kind of car William was used to. That's us, Emily said, putting her phone away. Found a place that has availability. Not fancy, but clean and safe. They can get Marcus in tonight. Marcus looked at the sedan, then at William. You sure about this? You saved my life, I'm sure. And if it doesn't work, if I'm not cut out for this foundation stuff, then we figure it out, but at least give it a chance. Marcus looked back at the underpass, at the people still huddled in the shadows. What about them? Them. The people back there. Tommy, Mrs. Wilson Ray. They're in the same spot I was. You going to help them too? William paused. I hadn't thought about that. That's the difference between us. You see me and think you can fix one person. I see them and know there are hundreds more just like us. So what do you want me to do? Marcus smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. I want you to learn. Come back tomorrow. Talk to them. Hear their stories. You want to build something that matters. You need to understand it's not just about money. It's about dignity. About treating people like they're human even when society says they're not. Okay. Tomorrow. I'll come back. With you if you want. We'll talk to them. Figure out what actually helps. Marcus studied him for another moment, then nodded. All right, I'll take your apartment for tonight, but tomorrow we do this my way. Deal. They got in the car. Emily sat up front with the driver, leaving Marcus and William in the back. As they pulled away from the underpass, Marcus looked out the window at the people they were leaving behind. You know what's funny? Marcus said quietly. What? A week ago, if you'd told me I'd be sitting in a car with a CEO talking about starting a foundation, I would have thought you were crazy. Would have said rich people don't actually care about people like me. And now I think maybe you're one of the rare ones. Someone who actually gets it. Marcus looked at William. But I'm watching you. If this turns out to be some PR stunt, some way to make yourself look good, I'm out. It's not a stunt. I promise you that. We'll see. They drove through Chicago in silence for a while. William watched the city pass by, seeing it differently now. Before he'd driven these streets hundreds of times, never really noticing the people huddled in doorways, sleeping on benches, holding cardboard signs. They'd been background noise. Unfortunate, but abstract. Now they were real. They were Marcus. They were people with stories, with losses, with dignity that the world refused to acknowledge. When we start this foundation, William said, the Daniel Reed Fund. I want your input on everything. Structure hiring policies. This can't be another top-down charity that assumes it knows what people need. You sure about that? Might not like what I have to say. I'm sure. Challenge me. Push back. Keep me honest. Marcus smiled. Oh, you can count on that. 3 months later, the Daniel Reed Foundation, opening day. The building didn't look like much from the outside. An old brick structure in South Side Chicago that had been a warehouse, then sat empty for 5 years before William bought it. But inside, they'd transformed it into something that mattered. First floor free medical clinic. Doctors volunteered their time funded by the foundation. No appointments necessary, no insurance required, no questions about immigration status or ability to pay. Second floor job training center, resume workshops, interview prep computer skills, run by people who'd been homeless themselves and knew what actually helped. Third floor temporary housing, 20 small apartments, nothing fancy but clean and safe. Stay as long as you needed to get back on your feet. No time limit. Fourth floor administrative offices and a community room where people could just exist without being told to move along. Marcus stood in the lobby watching people come in. Families with sick kids heading to the clinic, job seekers going upstairs for interviews, people who just needed a safe place to sit down. Nervous, William asked, walking up beside him. Terrified, Marcus admitted. What if it doesn't work? Then we adjust and try again. But I think it's going to work. In the 3 months since William had found Marcus under that bridge, everything had changed. The press conference where William explained what really happened that night. The media slowly, reluctantly shifting their narrative. The partnerships with hospitals, corporations, community organizations. But more than that, William had changed. He'd started coming to the bridge, regularly talking to people, learning their stories, understanding that homelessness wasn't a moral failing, but a series of circumstances that could happen to anyone. Medical bills, job loss, mental health, addiction, abuse, sometimes just bad luck, and worse timing. He'd hired 3 formerly homeless people to work at the foundation, not as tokens, but because they understood the reality in ways he never could. And he'd reconciled with Emily, started having dinner with her once a week, actually talking, actually listening, building back a relationship he'd neglected for too long. Mr. Harrington, a woman approached them holding a little girl's hand. I wanted to thank you. We came here last month when Mia needed heart surgery. The Daniel Reed Fund paid for everything. The doctors said without it. Her voice cracked. Without it, we would have lost her. William looked at Marcus, then back at the woman. You should thank him. It's his son's name on the fund. The woman turned to Marcus, tears running down her face. Thank you. Thank you so much. Marcus knelt down to the little girl's level. She was maybe 7 shy, hiding partly behind her mother. Hi there. What's your name? Mia, she whispered. That's a pretty name. How are you feeling? Good. The doctors fixed my heart. I'm glad. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I had a son once. His name was Daniel. He had a heart problem too. Did they fix him? No, they couldn't. But helping kids like you that makes me feel like Daniel's still here somehow. Mia thought about this seriously. I'll remember him, I promise. Marcus's eyes were wet. Thank you. After they left, Marcus stood there for a moment collecting himself. William put a hand on his shoulder. You okay? Yeah, better than okay, actually. Marcus wiped his eyes. For years, I thought Daniel's death was meaningless. Just tragedy and waste. But maybe it meant something after all. It meant you understood what it's like to lose someone because of money. That understanding built this. William gestured at the building around them. 17 kids have gotten surgeries because of this fund. That's 17 families who don't have to feel what you felt. 18, Marcus corrected. There's another one scheduled tomorrow. 18 families. That's Daniel's legacy. Maria Alvarez, the nurse from that first night, walked up. She'd been the one who suggested the free clinic had helped recruit other medical professionals to volunteer. "Morning, gentlemen. We're ready for the ribbon cutting." Outside, a small crowd had gathered, press community members, city officials who wanted to look good being associated with the project. The mayor was there, ready to give a speech about Chicago's commitment to helping the homeless. William hated this part, the performance, the politics, but Marcus had convinced him it was necessary. If politicians want to show up and take credit, let them. As long as the work happens, who cares who gets the photo op? They walked outside together. Someone had hung a red ribbon across the entrance. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. William stepped up to the small podium they'd set up. "Thank you all for coming. 3 months ago, I had a stroke and nearly died on a street corner in Chicago. I'd spent 20 years building a company, accumulating wealth, gaining power. And when I was dying, none of it mattered." He looked at Marcus standing off to the side. The only thing that mattered was a man named Marcus Reed, who had every reason to walk past me but didn't, who carried me through the rain when his own body was giving out, who saved my life, even though society had given him nothing but hardship. Marcus looked uncomfortable with the attention, but William continued. "Marcus had a son, Daniel, who died because our healthcare system values profit over people, because a child's life apparently has a price tag. And Marcus could have let that loss make him bitter, could have walked past me the way the world walked past him. But he didn't. And because he didn't, I'm alive. And because I'm alive, we're standing here today." William gestured at the building. "This is the Daniel Reed Foundation. It exists because Marcus taught me that the measure of a society isn't its wealth. It's how it treats people who have nothing. This building provides free healthcare, job training, housing, and dignity to people who've been told they don't matter. And every person we help is proof that they do matter, that we all matter." He stepped back. "Marcus, would you like to say something?" Marcus looked surprised. They'd agreed William would do all the talking, but William gestured him forward, and Marcus reluctantly approached the podium. "I'm not good at speeches," Marcus started. I'm just a guy who spent 4 years on the streets, a guy who lost everything. And I'm standing here today because someone decided that helping me was worth his time, even when it would have been easier not to." He looked at the building. "My son Daniel was the best person I ever knew. He was kind, funny, brave, even when he was scared. And when he died because we couldn't afford to save him, I thought that was the end of anything good coming from his life. But this," Marcus's voice cracked, "this is bigger than I ever imagined. Not just the surgeries, though, those matter, but the idea that we can build something where people get help because they're human, not because they can pay. So I guess what I'm saying is, thank you. Thank you to William for actually listening. Thank you to Maria and the medical team for volunteering. Thank you to everyone who donated, who helped, who believed this was possible." Marcus paused. "And thank you to Daniel, wherever you are. This is for you, son." The crowd applauded. Someone handed Marcus scissors. He and William cut the ribbon together, and the Daniel Reed Foundation was officially open. 6 months later, Marcus's apartment. Marcus's new place wasn't fancy, just a 1-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, but it had heat, had a real bed, had a kitchen where he could make his own food, and on the bookshelf next to some worn paperbacks was a framed photograph of Daniel. "Morning, son," Marcus said like he did every day. "Big day today. We're expanding to 3 more cities, Milwaukee, Detroit, and Indianapolis. 4 more kids got surgeries this week, 47 total now." His phone buzzed. A text from Tommy, his old friend from the streets. Tommy lived in the foundation's housing, now worked as a custodian there, had gotten his daughter back after proving he had stable housing and income. "Thanks for the recommendation, Marcus. Interview went great. Starting at the hospital next week." Marcus smiled and typed back, "Proud of you, brother." Another text, this one from William. "Board meeting this morning. They want to expand the housing program. Your thoughts?" Marcus called him instead of texting back. William answered immediately. "Morning. You see my message?" "Yeah. What kind of expansion?" "They want to add 50 more units. Different location, same model. But it means raising more money, recruiting more staff. Wanted to make sure you're okay with growing this fast." Marcus thought about it. 6 months ago, he'd been sleeping under a bridge. Now he was helping run a foundation. Life was strange. "My concern is we lose what makes this work," Marcus said. "We treat people like humans, not case files. We give them time instead of rushing them through. If we get too big, do we lose that? That's what I'm worried about too. But there are so many people who need help. I know. But better to help fewer people well than help more people poorly. William was quiet for a moment. You're right. I'll tell the board we're growing slowly. Doing it right matters more than doing it fast. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me honest. I need that. After they hung up, Marcus made coffee and sat by the window. He could see the street from here. People going to work, kids going to school. Normal life, the kind he hadn't had in years. His phone rang again, this time an unknown number. Hello? Marcus, it's Angela. Marcus's hand tightened on the phone. He hadn't heard his wife's voice in almost 3 years. Angela, hi. I saw the news about the foundation, about what you're doing. She was crying. I'm so proud of you, Marcus. Daniel would be so proud. Marcus felt his throat close up. I wish he could see it. Maybe he can. I don't know. But I know he'd be happy that something good came from... She couldn't finish the sentence. How are you? Marcus asked. You still in Milwaukee? Yeah. Still taking care of Mrs. Patterson. She's 92 now, sharp as ever. Angela paused. Marcus, I'm sorry I left. I'm sorry I couldn't be strong enough to stay. Don't apologize. You did what you needed to do. Maybe. But I left you alone when you needed me. That wasn't right. We were both drowning, Ange. Sometimes you have to let go to survive. They talked for an hour. About Daniel, about the years since, about the foundation. Angela told him she was thinking about moving back to Chicago. Not to get back together, they both knew that ship had sailed, but to be involved with the foundation. To help other families navigating what they'd navigated. Daniel's story shouldn't just help with surgeries, Angela said. It should help with support, counseling for families, resources for after when kids are recovering and parents are trying to hold it together. That's a good idea. I could help with that. If you want, Marcus looked at Daniel's picture on the shelf. I think he'd like that. His mom helping other families, keeping them from falling apart the way we did. After Angela hung up, Marcus sat there for a long time thinking about how life circles back sometimes, how tragedy can transform into purpose if you let it. 1 year later, Mercy General Hospital, emergency entrance. Marcus stood outside the emergency room where William had been brought in that rainy night. Above the entrance, they'd installed a plaque, Marcus Reed Emergency Entrance. Because every life deserves someone who won't walk away. William stood beside him, along with Emily Maria Alvarez, Tommy Rachel Kim, the lawyer who'd tried to help, and about 30 other people whose lives had been touched by the foundation. Still can't believe you did this, Marcus said, looking at the plaque. You earned it. You showed this hospital, this city, what actually matters. Seemed fitting to make it permanent. A young family walked through the entrance, father carrying a sick child, mother looking terrified. Marcus recognized that look. He'd worn it himself when carrying Daniel into hospitals, hoping for help he couldn't afford. Excuse me, Marcus called out to them. Is your child sick? The father looked wary. Yes, we're here for the emergency room. If money's a concern, make sure they know you're here for the Daniel Reed Fund. They'll help you, no questions asked. The mother's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Thank you so much. After they went inside, Emily put her arm around Marcus's shoulders. You do that a lot now, don't you? Make sure families know help is available. Someone should have done it for me, Marcus said simply. For us. William's phone buzzed. He looked at it, smiled. Jonathan Price just announced his resignation from Harrington Systems. Board voted him out after the evidence came to light about what he did. How do you feel about that? Marcus asked. Honestly, I don't care. 6 months ago, that company was my whole life. Now, it's just a company. This... William gestured at the hospital, at the foundation, at the people gathered. This is what matters. Maria Alvarez spoke up. We've had 127 successful surgeries now through the fund. 127 families who didn't have to watch their children die. 128 inches. Marcus corrected. There's one happening right now. Girl named Sophie, 7 years old, heart defect. You remember all their names? Emily asked. Every single one. They're the reason this matters. Tommy walked up looking uncomfortable in a suit. He'd gotten the hospital job, worked his way up to supervisor. Yo, Marcus, we doing this thing or what? Yeah, we're doing it. They walked into the hospital together. The CEO had invited them to tour the new pediatric wing, funded partly by the Daniel Reed Foundation, state-of-the-art equipment family rooms where parents could stay, therapy spaces for recovery, As they walked through, Marcus saw families everywhere. Some looked relieved, treatments going well. Others looked terrified, still waiting for answers. He saw himself in all of them. Saw Daniel. One mother stopped him. "Are you Marcus Reed?" "Yes, ma'am. You saved my son. The foundation paid for his surgery. He's home now playing basketball like nothing ever happened." She was crying. "I don't know how to thank you." "You just did," Marcus said gently. "You just told me he's okay. That's all the thanks I need." After the tour, they gathered in the hospital cafeteria. Someone had ordered pizza. They sat around, pushing slices around paper plates, talking about expansion plans, fundraising goals, policy changes. But Marcus was quiet, thinking about a year ago, about being under the Congress Parkway Bridge alone, branded a criminal for saving someone's life, about almost giving up, almost deciding that kindness was a mistake. William noticed. "You okay? Just thinking about how things change. A year ago, I was nobody. Now I'm on a plaque running a foundation helping people. It's surreal." "A year ago, you were somebody," William corrected. "You just lived in a world that refused to see it. Now the world has no choice." Marcus smiled. "You've gotten better at this. The not being a clueless rich guy thing." "I had a good teacher." Emily's phone rang. She answered, listened for a moment, then her face broke into a huge smile. "Sophie came through surgery. She's going to be okay." The table erupted in relief and joy. Marcus felt his chest tighten. 128 kids, 128 families, 128 stories that ended differently because of Daniel. Later, as they were leaving, Marcus stopped in front of the emergency entrance one more time, looked at his name on the plaque. "You know what I think about when I see this?" Marcus asked William. "What?" "I think about that night, about carrying you through the rain, thinking I was crazy for helping, thinking it would end badly for me. It did end badly, for a while. Yeah, but then it ended in this, in Sophie getting her surgery, in 127 other kids getting theirs, in me finding purpose again." Marcus touched the plaque. "So maybe doing the right thing doesn't always work out immediately. Maybe sometimes you have to carry people through the rain and trust that eventually, somehow, it matters." William stood beside him, both of them, looking at the entrance where everything had changed. "You saved me that night," William said quietly. "But in the years since, I think I've realized something. We saved each other." "How'd I save you? You were the one dying." "I was dying in more ways than one. Dying of loneliness, of meaninglessness, of becoming someone I didn't recognize. You didn't just save my body. You saved the part of me that still knew how to be human." Marcus thought about this. "Then I guess we're even." "I don't think we'll ever be even, but maybe that's okay. Maybe life isn't about keeping score. It's about carrying each other when we can't walk ourselves." They stood there as the sun set over Chicago, two men who'd started on opposite sides of every divide that mattered, and somehow found their way to the same place. A place where wealth was measured in lives saved, not dollars earned. Where success meant helping people stand up, not climbing over them. Where the only thing that truly mattered was refusing to walk away when someone needed you. Behind them, the hospital continued its work. Doctors saving lives, nurses providing care, families hoping for miracles. And above the entrance, Marcus Reed's name stood as a reminder that sometimes the people who seem to have nothing have everything that matters. "Come on," Emily said, walking up to them. "I'm buying dinner. And no, Marcus, you can't order the cheapest thing on the menu like you always do. Dad's paying, and he can afford it." "Fine, but I'm taking leftovers home." "Of course you are." They walked to William's car together. Not a CEO and a homeless man anymore. Not a rich person and a poor person. Just three people who'd found family in unexpected places. Who'd learned that saving each other was the only thing that ever really mattered. As they drove through Chicago, passing the Congress Parkway Bridge where Marcus had once lived, he looked out the window and saw a man huddled under the overpass, alone, invisible, forgotten. "Stop the car," Marcus said. William pulled over. Marcus got out, walked back to the bridge. The man looked up, wary. "You okay?" Marcus asked. "Leave me alone." Marcus pulled out his wallet, took out a card. "This is for the Daniel Reed Foundation. We've got housing, job, training, medical help. Whatever you need, just show up and they'll help you." The man stared at the card suspiciously. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just help. I used to sleep under this bridge. Now I run the foundation. If I can make it out, so can you." He left the card on the ground beside the man and walked back to the car. As they drove away, he saw in the side mirror that the man had picked up. The card was studying it. "Think he'll use it?" Emily asked. "Maybe, maybe not, but at least he knows it exists, that someone cares." Marcus settled back in his seat. "That's all we can do. Keep offering help. Keep refusing to walk away. Eventually it adds up." William smiled. "Spoken like someone who understands what this is all about. I learned from the best." "Who, me?" "No, Daniel. He taught me that being kind, even when life is cruel, is the only way to survive. Everything else is just details." They drove on through the city, three people bound together by tragedy and redemption, carrying each other the way Marcus had once carried William through the rain. Because in the end, that's all any of us can do: carry each other and refuse to let go.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.